The sunlight streamed softly through the grand ballroom's glass windows, painting golden streaks across the polished marble floor. A gentle melody floated in the air, violins weaving a story of love and possibility. Guests smiled politely, cameras clicked. Yet, amid all the sparkle and celebration, Leia stood frozen at the altar, her heart pounding so loudly it seemed to drown out the music. She wore a gown that could have cost more than her entire life's savings, surrounded by flowers that smelled of luxury. But to Leia, none of it mattered. This wedding, this picture-perfect scene was nothing but a performance, a transaction, a lie. She had agreed to marry a man she barely knew, thinking it was all a favor, a pretend ceremony to help him seal a business deal. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Every gesture helps us share stories that touch the soul and remind us that miracles can happen when we least expect them. Leia had grown up in the quiet corners of the city, working tirelessly just to get by. Dreams were luxuries she had never been able to afford. But when her mother fell ill, and hospital bills piled up, desperation forced her to accept an unusual offer. Ethan Vale, a reclusive millionaire known for his cold demeanor and cutthroat success, needed someone to stand beside him at a wedding that was never meant to be real. The arrangement was simple. She would act as his bride for one day, and in return, she would have enough money to cover her mother's treatment and perhaps start a small business afterward. When she first met Ethan, he was distant and formal, a man who seemed carved from glass and steel. His words were clipped, his gaze unreadable, and everything about him screamed business, not emotion. Yet, beneath the surface, Leia glimpsed something unexpected, a quiet sorrow, a story hidden behind his carefully constructed walls. She didn't ask questions. She only wanted to survive the day, smile for the cameras, and disappear once the ceremony was over. And for hours, she did exactly that. She smiled. She held his hand. She played the part perfectly. But then, beneath the filtered sunlight, something shifted. His eyes, once empty now, held a depth she couldn't explain. And then came the moment that changed everything. Just as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan leaned close, his breath brushing her ear. "Nothing will be canceled," he whispered. For a heartbeat, Leia didn't understand. This was supposed to be fake, a performance, a deal. But when she looked at him, she saw it all in his eyes. Something raw, something painfully real. The rest of the ceremony became a blur. Leia smiled automatically, walked beside him as guests congratulated them. But inside, her world spun. Every glance he gave, every subtle squeeze of her hand carried a meaning she wasn't ready to understand. After the guests had gone, and the daylight softened into gold, she finally asked him what he meant. That's when Ethan revealed the truth. Months ago, he had been engaged to another woman, only to be abandoned days before the wedding. Humiliated, his reputation on the line, he agreed to a symbolic ceremony just to satisfy his board of directors. He never expected to meet Leia, but she reminded him of everything he had lost: the warmth, the honesty, the human connection he had buried under wealth and ambition. Her quiet strength, her selflessness, her resilience, it reached him in a way nothing else had. Somewhere along the way, Ethan realized he didn't want this wedding to be fake anymore. For Leia, it was overwhelming. She had entered this arrangement with clear boundaries, and now her heart was being pulled into something entirely unexpected. That night, she left the mansion, tears blurring her vision as city lights streaked past. Days turned into weeks. Ethan tried to reach her, but she needed space to untangle truth from illusion. Meanwhile, her mother recovered. The bills were paid. For the first time in years, she didn't have to worry about survival. Yet every night, her thoughts returned to him, his whisper, his eyes, his kindness when he thought no one was watching. Then came a letter. No gifts, no grand gestures, just a handwritten note. Ethan didn't apologize for loving her, but for trapping her in a moment she wasn't ready for. He confessed he had canceled a billion-dollar deal because he realized some things money could never buy: a second chance at genuine love. At the end of the letter was a single line: "If you ever find it in your heart to forgive me, I'll be waiting at the old chapel at noon, where it all began." Leia's heart ached with emotions she couldn't name. Sunlight streamed through her window as she finally chose to follow her heart instead of her fears. At the chapel, he waited. No cameras, no guests, no contracts, just a heart's meeting in quiet truth. This time, Ethan said softly, tears glistening, "I'm not asking you to pretend." She didn't need words. The truth was in the silence, in his trembling hands, in her racing heart that now recognized love instead of fearing it. Weeks later, they celebrated again, simple, private, real. Her mother walked her down the aisle, and when Leia said "I do," she meant it with every fiber of her being. If this story touched your heart, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Every gesture helps us continue sharing stories of hope, healing, and love's beautiful unpredictability. Sometimes life doesn't give us perfect plans. It gives us perfect surprises. And as Ethan whispered once more, nothing will ever be canceled. Leia finally understood true love doesn't need agreements. It just is.